Welcome to Fascinating, a Star Trek podcast. The Menagerie, Part 1.
In this week's episode, the Enterprise is hijacked and its former captain abducted as Spock seeks to reach the forbidden planet of Talos 4. With the destination locked in, Kirk convenes a court-martial hearing as his first officer delivers shocking evidence. Spock faces the death penalty if convicted, but will his testimony be enough to change his fate?
You appear to be healthy and intelligent, Captain. Prime specimen.
Good evening, Ian.
Good evening, Gerry.
How are you?
Very well. Yourself?
Prime specimen.
Would you say so?
I've been told.
By yourself in the mirror?
My gran, one thing.
Okay, that's a bit creepy.
Yeah, it was nothing of a sexual nature, I assure you.
You hope. What did you make of this?
This, I thought, was a more sombre episode. There weren't as many laughs and giggles. It was, different.
Quite serious, yeah. Interesting way that they repurposed the existing footage as well.
You say that. I've not seen the existing footage, so it didn't mean much to me.
Okay, but interesting insofar as it was incorporating a second story into the main narrative.
Yeah, and interesting how they tried to get around the obvious.
I did like the fact they mentioned it as well.
Well, they tried to, didn't they? They tried to say this is... It's not very believable, but we can...
It's more believable after part 2, but...
Is it?
You need to hang on for that. You've not seen part 2 yet?
I've not.
Okay.
So assuming part 2 there's a full-blown film crew with audio technicians as well following Pike around his...
You'll see.
I will.
Okay. We might as well do the usual and crack on.
Do we need to? Oh, crack on? I thought you were going to do the usual and reel off some social...
Nah, folk know them by now and I'll probably mention them at the end.
Let's just do it.
Okay.
Crack on.
We begin on Starbase 11, which appears to be a planet-based starbase.
It does. We see Kirk, Spock and McCoy beam down to a city-like place. The aforementioned Starbase 11. Now, what is Starbase? Are there other starbases? This is 11.
Yes. There's at least 10 more.
We've not been to any before, have we?
Yes, we have.
Yes, yeah, I think I remember asking the same question, and I think the answer was you didn't know and you tried to bluff it a little bit.
Well, I don't know exactly how many starbases there are.
Yeah, you call yourself the internet's foremost expert on all things Star Trek.
No.
And
there's at least 43 people who claim that ahead of me.
In any case, they're down there and are greeted by a woman who appears to have been waiting on them.
Yes, she's obviously part of the Commodore's team, because she tells them that the Commodore is quite surprised that they're here.
She's not sure why they changed course to come here.
It seems the sort of thing they could have discussed before they arrived.
Yeah, it does. Kirk likes to keep people on their toes.
That's true. It's a mystery anyway. We've not really had this episode beginning with a mystery of this type yet.
Yeah, that's a very descriptive word, I think, for this week's episode. It's a mystery. And we all like a mystery, don't we?
We do, except for Kirk, because it gives him a bellyache.
He tells this woman that they received a subspace message requesting them, but she denies this and walks off to the Commodore with them in tow.
Yeah, Kirk kind of smirks as she goes. A cynic might suggest he thinks a simple woman wouldn't understand these sort of things.
You think that's what he's thinking?
I don't know, but if I was being harsh, I would suggest that I think he's maybe just amused by the fact that there's a bit of confusion.
Yeah. When you hear the word Commodore, what do you think?
Commodore 64.
Not Last Salute?
Well, also Last Salute, which is a Columbo connection.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think Commodore 64.
I had one of those myself. Loved it.
I didn't have one, but they were the equivalent to, I think I had a ZX Spectrum.
Mm.
Good machines.
For the time, certainly.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. We are in the Commodore's either office or his quarters.
Yeah.
His name's Mendez.
Jose Mendez.
Mm-hmm. And he is equally confused, especially when Kirk tells him that this urgent message was sent from the former Enterprise captain. Who's he?
Christopher Pike.
Christopher Pike, indeed. But Mendez informs Kirk that apparent communication was impossible and is surprised that Kirk is unaware of Pike's current condition.
Yes, apparently there's been subspace chatter for weeks.
Around the water cooler,
Yeah.
gossip. Have you heard what happened to Pike? No, what happened? Oh, you should see him.
Yeah. Now, you'll be familiar with the name Pike, I would imagine, from having watched the 2009 movie.
No,
You don't remember?
don't hardly remember anything.
He was the initial captain of the Enterprise in that movie. His story was slightly different in that version.
No recollection. I watched that movie once in the cinema. So
Okay, fair enough. We head up to the medical wing and intensive care section.
Yeah, firstly they're outside
Yeah.
this room, and we hear that Pike is about the same age as Kirk, and apparently was a handsome and healthy man.
Was being the operative word. Mendez is trying to prepare them for what they're about to find.
And interestingly, I think Kirk says that he met Pike when he was promoted to fleet captain before he took over the helm of the Enterprise from him.
So Pike was promoted out of the Enterprise and Kirk came in to replace him.
Okay, so a fleet captain's above a ship captain.
Yeah, he's in charge of the whole fleet of ships.
Yeah, the title would suggest that.
It does. So McCoy, being the inquisitive medical type, asks specifically what's wrong, and Mendez recounts an accident on a cadet vessel.
Yeah, it was some sort of explosion, a radiation.
I think baffle plates, he says, ruptured, and McCoy immediately realises this means that Pike was exposed to delta rays as he saved the young cadets.
Yeah, it's very heroic. I think he was pulling the survivors out.
Yes, knowing the risks to himself.
Yeah, and we should also mention that Spock, we're told here, worked for Pike 11 years, 4 months and 5 days ago.
No, that's how long he worked for. That's not the gap. So Spock and Pike worked together for 11 years, etc.
You are right, yes.
Yeah. Anyway, that's them briefed, so they're going to head into Pike's hospital room, which does not slide open, but rather has a handle.
Very old school.
Yeah.
The way Pike would have wanted it.
They've obviously repurposed this building.
The Roddenberry production office. Now, from the Commodore's warning and the ominous score, they enter with a bit of trepidation and see firstly the back of Pike until he turns around.
Sort of buzzes around.
He does. What's he sitting in?
It's kind of it's a wheelchair of a type, but it comes up to his neck and closed up to his neck.
Yeah. It's like one of those old school, you'd seen a James Bond movie. It's like a steam bath.
Yes.
And people would get trapped in it all the time.
And he's got a wound in his face that looks a lot like the scabs they had in Miri, when they had the blue scabbing.
Yeah, he's in a very bad way. Not just the scab, but his skin itself looks very aged and melted, and he doesn't look a well or happy chap.
No, he doesn't have much to say either.
And this appearance of his, it clearly disturbs the visitors, I think.
Yeah, well, they're certainly not pleased to see him in this condition.
No, even if you didn't know him, if you see someone like that, it would be a bit, You'd
feel for them.
You would. He can't talk, but by using flashing lights and beeps, he is able to communicate.
Captain, you'll remember these gentlemen. They wanted to visit you. 2 flashes mean no. I thought you might make an exception for them. I'm sorry, gentlemen.
Chris, if there's anything I can do for you.
Captain Pike, may I remain for a moment? You know why I've come, Captain. It's only 6 days away at maximum warp, and I have it well planned. I have never disobeyed your orders before, Captain. But this time, I must. I know. I know it is treachery and it's mutiny. But I must do this. I have no choice.
Pike seems to be on the fence about this.
When I was watching that, I was thinking that we're taking Mendez's word for it that 2 beeps means no. It might be the opposite.
Maybe just sing yes a lot. Yes, yes.
So that leads us into the credits. That was quite a long pre-credit sequence.
Yeah, and we now know that Spock is the villain of the piece.
Apparently so.
Dramatic twist.
So I can only assume that this is the last we see of Spock and he will be written out of the show.
Well, we'll find out next week.
Yeah. After the credits, we're back to Mendez's quarters. Kirk is asserting the facts from his perspective. He believes that Spock received the message from Pike, but Mendez challenges him.
Yeah, I thought this was really good because Mendez he's quite angry. He's aggressively making his point. But when Kirk points out that Spock, had he wanted to see Pike, could just have requested leave and it would have been granted, he says, it's a very good point. And then just sits down because he accepts that, that is a good argument. He doesn't have to. Mm-hmm. He probably should back down rather than being defensive about it. Yeah, rather than doing a Columbo villain where you try and come up with some sort of solution. Yeah. Kirk ponders whether there's some kind of external malign influence, but they don't have any immediate ideas. No. I must say that I immediately started to become a bit suspicious. I'm probably entirely wrong, but I don't trust Mendez. You don't trust Mendez? No. Why? Well, just how he acts through the episode. Because he wears that flower on his shirt. See, maybe it'll be that I'm too cynical because of my experience in watching these type of shows, which have become more sophisticated over the years. So you're always looking for a twist or a baddie. So I'm watching this thinking, if this was made today, you'd turn out to be a baddie, but maybe not. Maybe it's not quite. No, I don't know. The same. We'll find out. He checks in with the computer centre to see if they've gone over all the tapes to find out if someone could have sneaked a message out. Yeah, but the tech guy down there says, nope, that's impossible. So he asks them to check the impossible. We've heard that once before, I think. Yeah, Sherlock Holmes. Well, in Star Trek, but yes. At this, the communication is closed off just as Spock appears in this computer centre. Yeah, he creeps in and incapacitates the techie guy with a nerve pinch before starting to work on one of the machines. He does. Back up to Mendez's quarters. The woman from earlier, she enters and is introduced as a Miss Piper. She's obviously heard all about Kirk. Yes, because she says that what she knows about him from Helen Johansson. That wasn't Helen from... No, that was Helen Noel the other week. It's another Helen. Yeah, he likes his Helens. There's some sort of similar type of interaction with Kirk because he's immediately concerned at what she might have heard. Yeah, there's a little bit of flirting there. Well, you can tell from her face that she's heard more than she lets on. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a bit playful, but Kirk maybe is a bit embarrassed about what she might or could reveal. Particularly in front of the Commodore. Yeah, the Christmas party again. Oh, another Christmas party. Maybe the same Christmas party. Maybe he was up to all sorts with all sorts. All the Helens. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Maybe there was some sort of drunken... come into this darkened closet. Oh, is that you, Helen? Yeah, it is Helen. Oh, okay. Oh, it's not the Helen I thought it was. So much embarrassment in the dagger of the mind. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Anyhow, Piper's been running an investigation, but all that they can bring up that seems relevant is Spock's loyalty to Pike. Yeah, I mean, this annoys Kirk because I think, how does he respond? Well, he says that Spock would be loyal to Pike, but he would also be loyal to Kirk. Yeah, as a Vulcan, he doesn't have any choice in the matter. They are loyal by nature. That's what I read into it. Yeah, I'm not sure they fully understand the nature of Vulcans, but fair enough. Okay. That's how they feel at the moment. They have ruled out the possibility of Pike sending a message. He's observed 24/7, and he's not sent the message himself, obviously not able to do that, and he's not asked anyone to send the message. I don't think he could even really do that either. It really is a mystery, isn't it? Yeah. We get a bit more detail on Pike's condition as well. What's that? Mendez tells us that his body is vegetating. He's kept alive by a battery-operated heart. But unfortunate. I hope they have plenty of spares. Well, you'd hope it's rechargeable. Yeah. And so maybe the wheelchair's charging it. Back down to the computer centre where Spock is now interfering with a communication system and what looks like the mechanism that sent the message to the Enterprise. Potentially. He is working on a recording he has to get it to play at the right speed. So I wonder if that's maybe a different format or something like that, and he's having to configure it to work with the Starbase systems. Yeah, and that again did remind me, it's a type of thing that perhaps a Columbo villain would do. You would see at the start as they mess about with tapes, and there have been some episodes where that has happened. You manipulate a recording or... Yeah, to leave a message at the right time or whatever else, yeah. So we're up on the bridge where Uhura informs... The bridge of the Enterprise, we should say. Indeed.
Uhura informs Mr. Hansen, I suppose he's the deputy captain.
Well, he's standing in for now while everyone is off the ship.
Of an incoming message from the Starbase, which warns of new scrambled orders that have to be fed directly into their computer system.
This obviously raises a red flag, so they ask for confirmation from Captain Kirk.
Yes. This is obviously not in Spock's plans.
I think he has a plan for it, but he gets attacked just as he's about to respond by the chief of the Starbase Computer Center.
Yeah, he asks about his clearance.
Yeah, and they have a bit of a scuffle, and Spock has to incapacitate him also.
Before he then uses a recording of Kirk's voice to OK the orders.
Yeah, and quite cleverly has Kirk's voice say, "You can take further instructions from Spock."
Yeah.
He tells him that they're going to be leaving in about an hour, so he must be quite confident that these guys he's knocked out will be out of commission that long.
And we should make it clear that this feed that's been entered into the Enterprise's system is effectively an autopilot.
Yeah, it's a program that's going to direct it to where it's going, yeah.
Back down on the Starbase, Kirk is watching Pike repeatedly beep twice on a monitor when McCoy enters and curses medicine for being unable to fully understand the human brain.
Yeah, essentially Pike's sitting there going, no, no, no. And they're like, oh, what could you be saying no to? Nah, never mind. It's interesting, McCoy notes to Kirk that Pike's lifespan is not reduced by his condition, so he could be expected to live another 40, 50 years more.
Mm-hmm. And he's not convinced of the tactic of asking Pike random questions in the hope of getting somewhere.
No, that's crazy.
And Kirk, with a degree of uncertainty, asks him if it could have anything to do with Spock before outlining the possibilities.
It was one of two things. Either someone sent a message diverting us here, or someone on board the ship lied about receiving it. Could that someone be Mr. Spock?
Jim, forgetting how well we both know Spock, the simple fact that he's a Vulcan means he's incapable of telling a lie.
He's also half human.
And that half is completely submerged. To be caught acting like us or even thinking like us would completely embarrass him.
Someone's interfering with my command and my ship. I don't know who it is, but I mean to find out. Even you. If I thought you had the technical know-how, I'd suspect you, but you don't. Spock does.
He would not make a false entry.
There's a false entry in the log right now which doesn't jibe with the established facts. How do you explain that?
I can't, but to question Spock of all people. Me, yes. I could run off half-cocked given a good reason. So could you. But not Spock. That's impossible.
Dr. McCoy, report to transporter control. Dr. McCoy to transporter control.
McCoy here.
You needed aboard the Enterprise, Doctor. Medical emergency.
Well, what is it? Sickness? Injury? How bad is it?
That's all we have on it, Doctor. Just needed aboard.
I like Kirk basically saying, I would be suspicious of you if I wasn't sure you were too stupid.
Well, his talents lie in other areas.
Yeah.
I did enjoy, and I think it may be the best example in 20th century television of the use of the word jive by a white man.
He's down.
McCoy after this conversation tells Kirk he'll inform him what the medical emergency was once he gets back.
Yeah, he doesn't seem too concerned and sets off whilst Kirk heads back to speak with Mendez. And that's where we are in his quarters. The Commodore hands him the Talos 4 book, which is apparently top secret and for Starfleet Command only.
Right. This might be the first time we've heard the reference to Starfleet Command. I don't remember it coming up before.
Well, yeah, I was going to ask, so tell me about this. What should I know?
These are the central... Starfleet is the military arm of the Federation, so essentially. So all these vessels are Starfleet vessels.
And the Federation is the government?
It's the alliance of all these planets, Vulcan
right.
and Earth and Doria and a few others.
Okay.
At this stage.
Sure.
So this is essentially their military operation.
Mm.
Anyhow, this document, which opens in a very fancy way.
It does, but before they open it, what do we find out? I think all Kirk knows of the planet is that it has a General Order 7 and no vessel is allowed to visit it.
It's the only death penalty left on the books, apparently, if you visit Talos 4, or the Talos system generally.
Yeah, and only the fleet commanders know why.
Yeah, it's not included in this report either. Mm. But what is in this report is information about who's been there before.
Yeah, and how do we find that out?
So we've got this sort of magnetic type strip that they run a special device down to unlock the folder, and then it's all written on one page.
It's quite nice.
Yeah.
And what's on that page?
It reveals that very very conveniently it has the facts that are relevant to the current discussion in bold type. So the Enterprise, under the command of Christopher Pike, with his half-Vulcan science officer Spock also aboard, although he wasn't the first officer. First officer's not mentioned in this document for some reason. I think because she didn't go into the planet. Visited Talos 4, and the two of them recommend that no human ever goes back there again on subject of penalty of death.
Very suspicious.
Yeah.
Or intriguing.
Well, depends how you look at it.
Just then, Piper lets out a scream. Why?
Pike's run off.
How did he manage that?
Well, we don't know.
And worse still, they hear that the Enterprise is warping out of orbit and ignoring any communication.
Kirk seems much calmer about that than I'd have imagined.
They're always doing that type of thing.
I don't remember anyone stealing the Enterprise from him yet. Anyhow, up on the ship.
Yes, they are now out of the orbit, and Spock snaps at Hansen when he mentions the lack of a navigator and orders Uhura to maintain radio silence.
Yes,
he's going rogue here, isn't he?
He is. And everyone's just accepting it at this stage. He puts out an address to the whole ship explaining that Captain Kirk has been placed on medical rest leave and that he, Spock, is in temporary command and that everyone is to follow his orders as they would Captain Kirk's. But
McCoy is obviously unnerved by this. He didn't order rest leave for his captain and was not, in fact, needed for an emergency back on board the ship. No one made this call.
No. Spock says to him, I'm sorry they've kept things from you. And asks him to come with him.
Yeah, to his quarters, and that's where we are now. McCoy is shocked to find who there?
Christopher Pike.
Yeah, but before he can say or do anything, Spock plays him a recorded message.
Well, so just before that though, McCoy says to Pike, are you alright? And he says no.
Yeah, well, of course he's not.
But it's like, he's probably just saying no again.
Yeah, well, it's a stupid question.
Yeah,
are you alright? No, I'm not alright. Look
at me. My face is melted, yeah.
Yeah, so this recorded message, apparently from Kirk, is played. What does it do? Say?
It says, don't ask Christopher Pike any questions, just look after him and do what Spock says. And Pike flashes no at the end of that as well.
Yeah, well, I think the whole time, actually, he's beeping no in the background. This is far too convenient, I would have thought, if you're McCoy.
Well, does McCoy buy it? I think McCoy is smarter than he looks. We'll find that out shortly.
You think he looks stupid?
Well, no, I think he's even smarter than he looks.
Back in the bridge of the Enterprise, Hansen tells Spock that they're being followed, but is told to take no evasive action.
No, he's told not to slow down to let the shuttle catch up because that's the only way it's going to reach them. Obviously, the Enterprise moves faster than a shuttle. Spock says, no, we're not doing anything. We're just going to carry on.
And we see inside this vehicle, what is it?
It's a wee shuttle called the Picasso. I think that's only in the remastered version. I think originally it didn't have a name.
Okay.
But inside it, you've got Kirk and Mendez who are attempting to contact the Enterprise.
Yeah, with no luck.
And they know at this point that Spock is headed for Talos 4.
Yeah, Kirk is certain that's what's happening, and they then have to make quite a big decision.
Yes, they've reached the point of no return with their fuel. Do they turn back or do they continue their pursuit?
Back in the bridge, Spock talks to the library computer and finds out that the shuttlecraft has now passed the point of no return, as you mentioned, with regards to fuel, and he himself therefore has to make a very difficult decision.
He will have to. Back on the shuttle, Kirk and Mendez are now out of fuel and down to their last 2 hours of oxygen, and Kirk's upset with Mendez for coming along.
Yeah, using his rank privilege to do so,
yes.
Force himself on board.
Using up valuable oxygen.
And fuel.
Yes. Anyhow, Kirk laments the situation. He's almost hoping that the Enterprise doesn't stop because there's going to be serious consequences for Spock.
Yeah, Kirk understands that Spock would be court-martialed and his career would be finished and probably his liberty as well.
Yeah, and he could be executed if he gets as far as Talos, as Mendez is happy to remind him. But Kirk insists there must be a logical reason for this trip.
However, Mendez simply replies that maybe he just went mad.
Less likely.
Oh, is it?
I don't know. Maybe he's been exposed to something.
You see, this is why I'm suspicious of Mendez. He doesn't seem to want to work with Kirk here. He seems to be playing against him.
Yeah, but you need to remember that Mendez doesn't know Spock, so he doesn't have that same perspective that the others do. So he's looking at this entirely as a outsider, just what he's doing now, what are his actions at the moment, rather than how does this fit in the context of his personality or his previous record.
Okay.
Up on the Enterprise bridge, McCoy now challenges Spock about the shuttle.
Yes, he voices his concerns out loud about who is following them, but I think he somewhat sarcastically claims that can't be right.
Yeah, I think he knows who's in the shuttle, and he's about to say so, but before he can, Spock catches the shuttle with a tractor beam and implements a new protocol, Able 7 Baker.
So at this point, McCoy asks him outright if it is the captain, if it's Kirk. And again, Spock, he didn't respond to his previous question. He ignores him, and Hansen tells them that the Enterprise's engines are reversing to a dead stop.
Yes, they're stopping for the shuttle now. Spock requests a security team come to the bridge.
Yes, and advises the transporter room to prepare to beam Kirk on board.
He tells the crew that Hansen is in temporary charge and surrenders to McCoy as the senior officer.
This is a very big shift here, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, this is where the whole episode, I think, or the plot turns, yeah.
Because Spock's realised that if he carries on, then Kirk will die.
Mm-hmm.
So he has to save him. There's no point in doing his, or carrying out his original plan if it's going to lead to Kirk dying. That's defeating the purpose, isn't it?
Security arrive, as requested, and after hesitating, McCoy informs them that Spock is under arrest, and, with Spock's approval, has him confined to quarters.
In the transporter room, we see Kirk and Mendez arrive, and Mendez is quite surprised to learn that Spock was confined to quarters, given the severity of his offences.
That's true. We also hear, Kirk assumes control again immediately?
Yes, he gets given command back, and we get a report from Uhura that the engines have started up.
But when Kirk tells her to hold position, he's informed that they're not in control.
No, the crew can't control the ship at all. And we see Scotty saying storming off here, and there's some suggestion that he's muttering in Gaelic.
Really?
I didn't catch it,
No.
but possibly. Anyway, he storms off looking like he's got something to fix.
Yeah, and to be clear, this is they can't control the Enterprise because of this computer program.
Yeah, Spock's implemented the protocol.
Yeah.
The computer won't even accept Kirk's attempts to override it, and the computer explains to Kirk that if he tries to stop the engines, it will impact the life support systems.
Yeah, and while this is going on, I think Spock is watching them from a video screen.
In his quarters, yeah. It's strange that he's allowed to do that.
Very strange. But it's clear that he's well satisfied that Kirk hasn't been able to override the program. It's obvious that he's not happy about it.
No.
I mean, he's doing his duty here, but this doesn't give him any pleasure whatsoever.
No, that's right. We finally get a captain's log.
We do. 3012.4.
Kirk confirms that they've not been able to stop the ship, and he admits that this is the most painful moment of his career as he convenes a hearing on Spock's liberty.
So we get down to the briefing room, I think it is.
Some kind of courtroom anyway, yeah.
Spock faces Kirk and Mendez, who are accompanied by security and a recorder, a person who's recording what's going on.
Yes, Spock waives his right to counsel and asks if the preliminary hearing can also be skipped and the process sped up.
Yeah, he wants to go straight to court-martial, a request, however, that is denied by Kirk on the grounds that 3 command officers need to be available. And he thinks, got you here.
Yes, but Spock has outmanoeuvred him once again.
How?
There's a third command officer. It's Pike.
Ah, come on. But there is a loophole here.
Yes, he's been left on active duty, which Mendez says is because they didn't have the heart to take him off. And from what Mendez says here, it seems like there's no leeway. The fact that there's 3 officers there, I mean, they have to proceed. Yeah,
but that is the process, that is the written constitution or whatever, so...
Yeah, it's not that they may have the hearing, they must have the hearing, obviously.
And so Spock has got him with this cunning plan.
We get another brief captain's log as Kirk notes that the court-martial is indeed proceeding and that Spock has initially pled guilty.
Yeah, so we start the court-martial, now dressed in their finest judicial garb. Did you like their
the gold collar Spock as well, yeah.
Yeah. And with Pike now in attendance, Mendez begins by reminding Spock of the punishment due if the Enterprise gets to Talos 4. So I think it's he giving him a chance to
stop it, yeah. So Spock notes that he's aware of that, and Mendez asks why they're going there.
Yeah, he wants to know why he's so determined to get to this forbidden planet.
And this is what Spock's been waiting for.
Yes.
He has Mendez explicitly confirm that his question is on the record, and this opens the doorway to him to introduce new evidence.
Now, we alluded to this earlier. This video, this very professional looking video.
Where does it come from?
Almost as if it was a professional TV studio recording this.
Very close.
Mm-hmm.
So Kirk makes the point that this type of record wouldn't be kept, and he asks Pike to confirm, are these events real? But Pike says, yes, they are. This is what happened.
Mm-hmm.
So the source is unknown, but the fact that this is genuine footage of what happened seems to be accepted.
The footage shows Spock and Pike agree that there firstly is something heading their way. But at this point, Kirk shuts down the screen, and this is when I think Pike confirms it is genuine.
It's genuine. But what Pike also confirms is that no such records were kept by the Enterprise crew. And Spock won't tell them where it's coming from. So on that basis, Mendez tries to rule this evidence out of order, but Kirk is happy to see more.
Yes, so we now skip to this, it's not a flashback, but this footage from 13 years prior, and we see that something is still coming towards the Enterprise. Alarms are going off on the bridge, and they eventually work out what it is.
Yeah, it's an antiquated radio wave, and their communications officer picks it up and is able to work out what they're saying.
Yeah, it's a distress signal from Talos that was sent 18 years ago.
Yes, and because of the antiquated nature of this signal, it would realistically take that amount of time to reach this. But it's a bit like the radio signals we send into space now, and you see them monitoring signals that are coming back as well.
Mm-hmm. However, Spock's suggestion to investigate the source of the signal in case there are still survivors is dismissed by Pike, who doesn't think it should be a priority at this point, and he's obviously quite stressed at this point.
Well, it sounds like they've come from some kind of encounter where they've sustained injuries themselves, because Pike says he's not, without evidence of survivors, he's not going to take the ship into the Talos system when they have their own injured to care for.
Mm-hmm. And at this, Pike leaves the bridge and we see an unsettled Spock remain.
Yeah, we go down to Pike's quarters somewhere. There's also footage of this.
Yeah, he calls it his cabin.
Okay.
Yeah, there must be a guy, because he lounges out on his bed. So there's some little chap there with a...
Well, we'll find out.
Yeah.
Dr. Boyce arrives.
Yes, after he's communicated with really old school, antiquated device.
Well, it's like the top of it's like the standard communicator, but then it's like not built quite as sturdily, is it?
Yeah, it's almost as if there's no casing on it.
Yeah. So Dr. Boyce is here with what you assume would be a medical kit.
Well, he's got a doctor's bag, a Jack the Ripper style case.
Yes.
And he opens it up, he takes out a couple of beakers.
Yep.
Get a clear liquid. Yeah, there must be some sort of, I don't know, something to relax, some medical...
Yeah, some tincture. No, I don't know.
Was it laudanum or something like that?
Turns out it's just his cocktail kit.
Well, we'll get to that. Now, I've noted here that Pike seems to use Boyce as a sounding board in the same sort of way that Kirk does with McCoy. But unlike McCoy, Boyce appears to be happy simply to agree with his captain's decision to decline this investigation to go down to the planet. So at first I wasn't that impressed with Boyce. However, Boyce then hands him this liquid, and we find out more about his decision making, the reasons behind it, and the stresses that he is under.
The devil are you putting in there, Ice?
Who wants a warm martini?
What makes you think I need one?
Sometimes a man will tell his bartender things he'll never tell his doctor. What's been on your mind, Chris? The fight on Rigel 7?
Shouldn't it be? My own yeoman and 2 others dead, 7 injured.
Was there anything you personally could have done to prevent it?
Oh, I should have smelled trouble when I saw the swords and the armor. Instead of that, I let myself get trapped in that deserted fortress and attacked by one of their warriors.
Chris, you set standards for yourself no one could meet. You treat everyone on board like a human being except yourself. Well, now you're tired and you...
You bet I'm tired. You bet. I'm tired of being responsible for 203 lives, and I'm tired of deciding which mission is too risky and which isn't, and who's going on the landing party and who doesn't, and who lives, and who dies. Oh, I've had it, Phil.
To the point of finally taking my advice, arrest leave.
To the point of considering resigning.
And do what?
So a couple of things. Pike's all upset about losing a couple of his crew. I mean, he should take... Or, it predates Kirk, but Kirk was losing them left, right and centre. 7 at a time, 11 here, 11 there. It doesn't matter. You know, you pick up a few, you lose a few. Don't let it stress you.
Exactly.
Yeah, he's far too...
He's more sanguine. And
that's what I think Boyce is trying to do. He's sanguinising him here. He gives him a martini.
He does, with ice.
Yeah, so that I like this because my opinion changed off him at this point. I think that rather than using McCoy's approach where if you disagree, you immediately challenge him and make your point, what he's doing here is he's acting more like a sort of therapist, I suppose.
He's letting him work it through himself.
Yeah, Boyce is all right.
Okay. We hear Spock of 13 years ago come over the comms here and report there's a second message confirming there are survivors. So, up on the bridge, Pike is read the message. There's 11 survivors on the planet.
No, we missed a bit there. I thought it was nice.
Was it good?
There's a bit of philosophising about how you can face life head on and lick it, or let it beat you down before they're interrupted by Spock. And I thought it was quite...
Yeah, so it talks about there being two types of people to deal with, living and dead.
Well, that's one way of looking at it. I suppose one way of divvying the population up.
Yeah. They don't count towards the population when they're dead.
But like I think it's quite an old school, maybe it's like shucks, isn't it? It's quite
regional.
Yeah.
Anyhow, like I say, up on the bridge, Pike, obviously now having reconsidered, is listening to this message confirming 11 survivors of the Columbo?
Was it? Okay.
On the planet, the fourth planet in the Talos system, the one that's got the breathable atmosphere. So Pike advises the crew that they are heading to Talos 4.
Yeah, so he seems to have made the right decision now.
Well, you could put it that way. As he orders the helmsman to take them to Talos 4, we, the audience, are taken back to the courtroom where Spock is presenting this information, yes. Mendez accuses Spock of manufacturing these images.
Yeah, he thinks it's some sort of CGI wizardry going on, a trick pulled by Spock.
But Pike is able to confirm that these are the actual events that took place, and Spock says that if the court sees all the evidence and decides to turn back, he will release the ship. But Mendez is not having that.
No, he claims firstly that Spock is in no position to bargain. I think he clearly is in a position to bargain.
Yeah, he's got control of the ship.
And he wants the proceedings ended. That's why, this is actually, I'll take a note here saying, is he a wrong'un? No,
but what you find in some Star Trek, I think more the later shows, when you get admirals in this position instead of commodores more often, they're so often that the antagonists, there's a name for them, they get called badmirals.
Right.
So he's maybe a bomber. No. What would you call a bad commodore?
Yeah. But I mean, that is a cliche in the... Even in T.G. Hooker, with Shatner I've been watching recently, there's always like he's on the streets fighting crime and doing it his own way and breaking a few rules, and the lieutenant or the captain comes in and says, "You can't do that, you're off the case." You know, it's that type of...
it's the same in Colombo sometimes. Every time you see his superiors, they're always hamstringing him.
Yeah, I mean, it's a TV trope.
Yeah. Anyhow, they have a vote. Mendez votes to stop the evidence here and Kirk to continue, which leaves Pike with the deciding vote, and he sides with Kirk.
We then have a Captain's Log supplemental, just a recap.
Yeah, Kirk confirms that Spock has managed to manipulate the court into accepting his unusual evidence, and that they're having to watch Pike and the Enterprise head to the galaxy's one forbidden world, although I don't think there's any indication it was forbidden at that time.
It wasn't.
I suppose we're about to find out why it became forbidden.
Hope so.
Yeah. Mendez instructs the screen be turned back on, and the evidence continues.
Yeah, so we're back down to the bridge 13 years prior.
Yes, the Enterprise is now in orbit of Talos 4, and the geologist reports that the atmosphere is breathable and the gravity is more or less okay. I think it's 0.9 of Earth's.
So Pike organises a landing party that includes Spock, and Royce, but not number 1, as she has to remain as the experienced officer in charge. Now, I recognised number 1.
Yes, that's Majel Barrett, played number 1. She got dropped because the network made Roddenberry choose between her and Spock, basically. And he chose Spock.
Over his wife?
Yeah, I don't think they were married at that point.
No?
That wouldn't have amused her, I don't imagine. He brought her back. She got to be Chapel. This Tyler guy, who you've not mentioned and I've not mentioned, is also on the bridge. He reports that there's shiny objects that could be the ship, so they're going to get set down a safe distance away.
In the transporter room, they change into their warm jackets. They don't normally do this. This is something different.
No, and the other thing I quite liked was that the transporter chief was clearly wearing working overalls. It wasn't anything uniform or fancy. It was like proper overalls.
Yeah, he's more of an engineer down in the...
working man. Yeah.
And I had asked you this before, as you mentioned there, they get beamed down. They actually discuss beaming down to a remote location, so they're not going to risk being sent down in the middle of a dangerous situation, Okay, so they do get beamed down to Talos 4. They arrive and they find some, I think it's initially pink flowers growing.
There's blue flowers that hum, that delight Spock and Pike.
Those are in the distance. They draw their weapons and they walk towards these blue flowers, and this is where this humming is coming from, this vibrating plant with blue petals. And I think the sounds, they dampen if you hold on to them. It's not quite as loud.
Spock seems uncharacteristically happy about this.
Yeah, I think it just tickles his fancy.
Just so happens to be one that he can't quite keep his delight in check.
Yeah. So they proceed encountering more of these plants until they come face to face with what? Who?
The survivors.
Yeah, some people.
They're so pleased to see them. They exchange pleasantries and talk about what's been happening on Earth.
Yeah, they've got a makeshift sort of settlement. They look very much like castaways.
Yeah, and then you get a woman in her mid-30s who's meant to be 18.
Is she?
Yes.
Yeah, because it was 18.
The crash was, and she was born just after the crash.
Yeah. The people that initially talked to are old scientist guys.
Yeah.
In their 50s. They were probably in their 40s back then, but it looks as if they're a bit in their 60s.
Yeah.
And then one of these crewmen who's talking, was that Tyler, was it? I don't know.
Maybe Tyler's talking to them, I think so.
But he stops midway through his sentences.
Lady.
Yeah, that's attractive. In fairness, you weren't expecting that.
No.
She sashes up and is introduced as who?
Vina?
Correct, yeah.
And they say that she was born not long after the crash and her parents are dead. It's quite a lot of information to be given when you first meet somebody.
Yeah, why do they care, or why do they need to know this right now?
It's almost like they feel they have to explain why this group of middle-aged men have got a young woman in their camp.
Because, have you built a sex robot?
Definitely not a sex... no. We get a shot now of these three other women with giant heads.
Is it women?
They're all played by women. One of them is played by the salt vampire from the first episode.
Ah, right, yes. Yes, these alien types are viewing from some other room. They're sort of human-like, but they've got massive skulls, sort of brain skulls, and they throb a little bit. Yeah,
on the steroids.
One of them nods to the others, who set off and obviously know what they have to do.
Yeah. Pike is in contact with the Enterprise at this stage. He's trying to set up a recovery of the survivors, and number one wants scouting and scientific parties to be approved.
Yeah. But he is distracted by Vina, who refers to him as a prime specimen, as we heard in the intro, causing one of the men to, for some reason, apologise. I suppose it's
her use of language is a bit, yeah.
Yeah, he explains that she was brought up by elderly scientists, so...
Call people prime... Well, they've been calling her a prime specimen the whole time. Is this what's been going on? She wants to show the captain, and I would quote, our secret. So that's another twist.
Uh-huh.
At this point, Boyce shows up and he is suspicious.
Yes, he says that their health, he must have carried out some tests, is almost too good. And
by almost too good, I think he means too good.
Yeah.
And one of the men, yes, as you're right to say, says, let Vina show your captain the reason for this and we'll accept your judgment on that.
Yeah, but there's a touch of the Corby about him, because he says that they've discovered something that the Earth might not be ready to learn about, and that's sort of the view that Corby had.
Yeah, actually, it's exactly what he said, wasn't it? That's why he wanted a new planet to himself.
Mm-hmm. Nonetheless, they say that Vina can show Pike what this secret is. And as you said, they'll accept his judgment. So she guides him away from the camp and up some rocks.
Yes, she says that he is a perfect choice and that he'll feel better soon.
He can't see anything and doesn't understand why he's here, what she's alluding to. And then we see it was a trap.
Yes, both Vina and the other survivors vanish, along with all their encampment.
And a shimmer, yeah.
And a door opens in the rock face near to where Pike is, and he is knocked out and dragged away.
Yeah, by the two of the big heads.
Yes.
Tell me how he was knocked out.
Did he get zapped?
He's a little like a magic Harry Potter wand.
Yeah. Izzy wizzy, let's get busy. Then Tyler and Spock and the others rush over, and just in time to see the door closing, so they shoot it, but all they can damage is the rock outside. They can't damage the door itself.
When we see them, they drop down in a lift.
Yes, Pike and the women drop down as the doors are closing. And as young Spock, I'll call him, reports to number one that there's no survivors and it's a trap and they've lost the captain, we are returned to the courtroom.
Yes, to the present time, with Kirk closing the video and Pike looking on with perhaps a mixture of maybe horror and understanding. I think he's getting more information about what happened now. He wouldn't have seen this.
Yeah, he wouldn't have known all of this, yeah.
Yeah. Uhura then communicates with an urgent message for Mendez.
Subspace monitors show Enterprise receiving transmissions from planet Talos 4 in violation of Starfleet General Orders.
Receiving transmissions from Talos 4. And the images we've been seeing are
coming from Talos 4, sir.
Captain Kirk is hereby relieved. You are ordered to assume command of the Enterprise. Disable vessel if necessary to prevent further contact. Message signed, Comsol Starfleet Command.
Mr. Spock, you're aware of the orders regarding any contact with Talos 4. You have deliberately invited the death penalty. You've not only finished yourself, Spock, but you finished your captain as well.
Commodore must be aware that Captain Kirk knew nothing of this.
And you're aware that a captain is responsible for everything that occurs on his ship. I order you to return this vessel back to manual control.
Spock says no.
He declines to do so, and so Mendez warns him that he's now earned the consequences of his actions.
And he leaves with his yeoman, and Scotty and McCoy take Pike out.
And with Kirk left alone, you see him, I think he now realises his situation.
Well, he speaks to Spock before Spock leaves. Mm-hmm. And he asks him if he knows what he's doing. And Spock it's almost pleading. He calls him Jim, uses his first name. This is a desperate Spock. He must be allowed to show the rest of the transmission. His career, Kirk's career, and Pike's life are on the line. Yeah,
Kirk doesn't respond to this. He orders him to be locked up, and when he's on his own, you see the sort of distress or the pressure, the realisation of the pickle.
He's lost his ship.
He has,
This is a big deal.
Uh-huh.
There's not an easy way out of that unless Spock...
He can only rely on Spock
convincing the panel that everything's above board or legal.
Yeah, so it's certainly putting a strain on the trust in the relationship.
We get a message on the screen that says, to be concluded next week.
Oh.
This is the only two-parter in the series.
Is it?
Yeah.
Right.
Quite interesting.
Very interesting, yes.
I like Mendez.
Do you?
I thought he was authoritative but willing to listen, which I thought was quite a good combination.
Did you? I felt the opposite. I thought he was authoritative and didn't really want to. He was always arguing.
No, I think there's a couple of times in the courtroom and a time that I brought up earlier on in his own office where when he heard a strong argument, he accepted it.
Yeah, that's fair. I think when there was solid proof, he didn't argue. But I don't think he gave Kirk the benefit of the doubt. And I don't think he gave Kirk the respect in the sense that, okay, you're a good captain. If you believe this and if you trust your men, I'll trust you.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about Kirk being particularly worried at the end, but I thought throughout the episode he seemed a bit unsettled.
Well, which is
probably fair, given that it starts out with him not knowing why he's been manipulated into taking his ship to the Starbase.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so decent episode, set up nicely for next week. It was a reasonable mystery. I'm not sure, I must admit at this point, I'm not sure what's going on.
No.
I'm not trying too hard to work out because I'll enjoy it next week as it unfolds. But
I had one question for you about this and see what you thought. So when Pike is going telling Spock no. Do you think he's doing that for Spock's sake? I think he's trying to say, look, you're going to ruin your career here.
Don't know yet.
Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't sure myself. Well, I'm assuming that Pike's a decent guy, or he certainly was when he started out. Is he saying, no, I don't want to go back here because of the horrors
it could be
that happened to him?
He's don't take me there. It's
traumatised.
We've banned all humans from this place for a reason.
Yes, I think maybe he's saying, no, I don't want to go back to that place.
People who like Christopher Pike might be excited at the latest rumours that he's getting his own series.
With the same...
Pike, number 1, Spock on the Enterprise.
Is the real... Well, tell me, we can do some trivia just now. Is the original Pike still with us?
Come to him next week.
Oh, okay.
I do have some information about others who were involved in this, so we'll do the trivia, shall we?
Why not?
Original air date 17th November 1966. The Menagerie Part 1 was the 3rd episode, directed by Mark Daniels, with another 12 to follow.
Paul Daniels' father, brother.
We discussed him in episode 1, we did the Man Trap, but it's worth noting that he directed only the envelope part, so obviously he didn't direct the cage, which the footage from Talos and the old Enterprise come from. So what they've done is they've divvied up the directorial credit, so he gets this episode and the director of the cage gets next week's episode, and we'll talk about him then. I think there was an approach made to him to come back and do this episode, but he didn't like the series and didn't want to get involved.
Okay.
So that's the story that I read.
No.
Basically. The only writing credit for the episode is given to Gene Roddenberry. Our old friend John D.F. Black had written an envelope script to use the cage footage, but Roddenberry rejected it and completely rewrote it, and Black had to file an unsuccessful grievance with the Writers Guild over the decision not to credit him. Well, he didn't have to file an unsuccessful grievance, but he filed a grievance and it was unsuccessful. Okay. Malachi Throne.
Nice name.
It's a good name. Played Commodore Mendez. He had a voice role in the cage as well, so it's a good little throwback there. And he didn't appear in Star Trek again until The Next Generation, so this is him for the original series after next week.
Not playing the same character?
No, in The Next Generation he played a Romulan, I believe. You don't know about Romulans yet?
No.
He died in 2013 at the age of 84, and he'd appeared in shows like Kojak, The $6 Million Man, and The West Wing. Hagen Beggs was Lieutenant Hansen. He'd appear in one further episode as an unnamed helmsman, presumably still Hansen. And he also showed up in series like Perry Mason, Danger Bay, and Border Town before his death in 2016.
Danger Bay sounds good. I'll check that out.
Yeah, he's in quite a lot of that. He was 79 when he died.
Can't complain.
Julie Parrish was Piper, who knew all about Kirk's reputation. She appeared in shows like Beverly Hills 90210, Murder, She Wrote, and Return to Peyton Place before her early death from cancer in 2003 at the age of 62.
Oh.
And the incapacitated Captain Pike that we see in the wheelchair was played by Sean Kenny. His makeup for the role took 5 hours to apply, which might in part explain why after 2 further Star Trek episodes he's only made about a dozen acting appearances in the last 50 years.
5 hours just for his face?
Yeah.
Okay.
From 1980 onwards he worked as a professional photographer, and he's still alive, as far as I know.
Good. And he's still in his wheelchair?
Yeah, probably. Finally, our Columbo connection of the week. So John Lormer played Dr. Haskins, who I think was one of the survivors on Talos 4.
Okay, was he? Didn't recognise him?
Yes, he played him in the cage and in this episode. He also played a hearing officer in the season 1 Columbo Mystery Lady in Waiting, which is my personal favourite episode. He died in 86 at the age of 79. I've only got most of the trivia for this episode I'll save for next week, including the international titles and so on, but I've got 1 or 2 little things. So Jeffrey Hunter played Pike in the cage, so he was neither available nor within budget for this episode, which is why we got a new actor. And in the making of Star Trek, it's explained that the quick turnaround on putting this episode together, because it was such a short bit of writing and they were able to do it quickly because they'd already filmed the cage stuff, it was vital in hitting the deadlines. They were at risk of falling far behind in terms of hitting the episode deadlines to submit to NBC, so the fact that they were able to produce 2 episodes out of this very quickly allowed them to hit all their targets.
The producers would be happy with that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Next week,
what have we got?
Menagerie Part 2.
Oh, yeah.
Just to mix things up a little bit. And that'll be the end of the story, so you'll enjoy that, I think.
The end of Spock's final episode.
Well, it could be. We'll have to wait and see.
And Kirk as well.
All on the line. All on the line.
Everything.
In the meantime, people, please go to Apple Podcasts and leave us a rating and subscribe there. It would be very much appreciated. If you want to chat with us, you can get us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram, where we're at Trek Podcast, or you can leave a message on the website astartrekpodcast.com. There is a post up for this and every episode.
Okay, that's us.
Yeah, we'll see folk in 7 days' time for the conclusion.
Cheerio.
Bye bye.